What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and happy New York Giants just got a whole lot better in free agency day. They signed a bunch of players. Campbell's in there. They extended Darius Slayton. They traded for Darren Waller. This offense looks 10 times better than it did at this point last year. So let's go ahead, break it down, discuss all these players that the Giants just re-signed, and kind of give our projections for this upcoming 2023 season and what we expect from the offense now that they've made so many moves in free agency. So we're going to go ahead, break all that down, but before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode and subscribe to the channel if you're new and ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing on this fine St. Patrick's Day, and what are your thoughts on the new look New York Giants offense?
Hey man, I'm having a great day. Can't wait to have myself a nice Guinness or several later on. So if everyone else is enjoying Guinness, really enjoy that. It's a great beer, great beverage. I really hope everyone's having a fantastic day and staying safe out there because there's a lot of trouble that happens on St. Patrick's Day for obvious reasons. But hopefully you guys are staying safe and having a great time in addition. But yes, this Giants team is certainly growing, developing. They made some nice moves this morning financially. If you guys don't know this, the Giants restructured Darren Waller's contract, and this is kind of an interesting thing. Obviously, I kind of want to break this down for you because it is an important variable. A lot of people don't know how this works. So the Giants converted about $9.8 million of Darren Waller's 2023 base salary into a signing bonus, creating about $7.8 million in cap space. So if you don't know what that means, when you take a base salary and you convert it into a signing bonus, that means that signing bonus is completely guaranteed, but that $10 million would have been owed to Darren Waller this season. Instead, they take that money and then they turn into a signing bonus, which is guaranteed. They pay the lump sum up front, but they take that $9.8 million and it gets spread over the duration of the contract instead of it all being owed right now. So in theory, you're able to create more cap space immediately instead of having to take on the big cap hit right now, which allows us to sign the players that we've already gotten, Okereke, and of course you have Campbell and Darius Slayton. So that money essentially rolls over and signs the guys that we've already had. Okereke's salary actually is not included in their over the cap numbers just yet, so you have to kind of factor it in yourself. But yes, this is a good move, creating some money. We obviously have Leonard Williams, the big elephant in the room, that $32 million cap hit, which definitely will be changed. Adoree Jackson's another guy they could restructure, but it seems like, according to Dan Duggan of The Athletic, that they're kind of keen on riding the rest of that contract out. So obviously, cornerback seems like a big need if they're going to let Adoree Jackson walk in free agency next year. So I would definitely assume the Giants draft somebody or look into free agency next offseason to fill that spot. But talking about what we have right now, we've done the reaction analysis videos for all the individual players. We just want to walk through with you guys the main playmakers the Giants team has right now. Now, if you guys didn't see before, Isaiah McKenzie of the Buffalo Bills was released. Really cheap player, obvious connection there. Do I want another smaller slot guy? He's reliable, healthy for the most part. Definitely wouldn't be a bad person to add to the mix on a cheap veteran minimum deal or close to it. So something to keep in mind there in terms of what the Giants can do to add a little bit more firepower and reliable firepower. We have a lot of guys, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson, Campbell's healthy, but has had his own fair share of injuries in the past. But again, Wan'Dale and Shep, the primary slot guys there, have had recent ACL tears, which definitely puts them in a boat where we don't know how much they're going to be able to contribute next year or when they will be able to contribute. Shep probably a little bit further along based on the fact he was a couple weeks earlier than Wan'Dale. But, Isaiah McKenzie certainly makes sense. Good return man, gadget player, slot guy, can do some stuff with it, knows the offense essentially. So definitely something to consider there. But let's talk about Shep right off the bat. Our expectations for him this upcoming season. We'll do a brief analysis of each individual player and kind of list them off for you guys. Shep, 31 years old, a little bit older. I don't really want him to be starting. If he falls and he fights into a starting role again and he looks good, I'm all for it. Shep is a great player when he's healthy, but again, the health variable is one that is certainly concerning for him. So I will say this, I would much rather see Shep in this utility kind of reserve role, coming in, filling for injury, filling for fatigue, coming in certain packages and really helping keep this team upbeat and productive instead of him being in a starting role, because if he's in a starting role, that means that if he gets injured, and more or less when he gets injured, you're left kind of picking up the pieces again. So I'd rather have him, he can play on the X, he can play in the Z, he can play in the slot, he can move around the formation really nicely. I want him kind of in that role, being a supplementary piece and staying healthy, because we want him to be healthy for a postseason run if we do make it to the playoffs next year, which is obviously the goal. But I think Shep, obviously love to have him. Great energizer, great leader, great locker room guy. He's a net positive on this team at a very cheap price point this upcoming season. If you don't like Shep being brought back, I don't know what to tell you. It's literally a veteran minimum deal. There's no downside to it. If you don't like it, you may just not like Shepard as a person, which is hard to do because he's a great guy. So, Anthony, I'll let you give your take on Shepard, who I personally think was a fine acquisition, fine retention at a really cheap price point.
Yeah, I think it was a great signing, just considering the fact that he does so much for the team in the locker room, on the sidelines, and when he's healthy on the field. I mean, I think people are forgetting how good he was in Week 1 versus the Tennessee Titans. He had a 50-plus yard touchdown in that game where he broke a tackle and took it to the house. He's had a lot of those plays in his career, and he's just a very dependable receiver when he's on the field. Now, I know dependability, a lot of that has to do with durability. He's not the most durable guy. He's often injured, but I think that this season, the Giants have kind of set up their offense in a way where they have enough talent to where they don't have to rely on Sterling Shepard, and he can just be this rotational guy. Whenever someone needs a breather, that's where Shep goes in. Kind of like a sixth man, if you like basketball, he's like your sixth man. He's kind of your leading guy off the bench, and I think that's the perfect role for Sterling Shepard at this point in his career. This many injuries later, I don't want him in the starting lineup. I don't want him playing starting level snaps, but for those starters, let's say a Paris Campbell needs a little bit of like a pitch count. He's had an injury history in the past. Let's say he's feeling a little sore, a little tender on a game day, right? Okay, now we're going to put in Shep on a couple of these drives and give Paris Campbell a little bit of a breather to make sure he doesn't hurt himself. So that's really just the whole point there with Shep. I think, listen, his leadership is one aspect of it, and then the second aspect is he's still a damn good player, but you can't let him play a full game. You can't let him play a full season. So if you just have him rotate in and out, just slip in and out of the lineup whenever someone needs just a little break, just needs a drive off or a couple plays off, that's Shep. That's exactly what he does. And I think he's going to fit that role really well. So I'm really happy about that. And again, I really like that signing. There's no risk to it. It's low cost. It's just depth. And listen, having a guy who can slip in and out of the lineup and play in reserve for any of these players that just need a breather mid-game, that's like a luxury. The Giants have enough depth to where they can have a player that can play that role. That's a luxury. And again, that's just why I say that Joe Schoen's just done such a good job this offseason, adding depth to the receiving core, and now setting up the team to where they can go best player available in the 2023 NFL Draft. So very, very excited by what Joe Schoen has done. I love the receiving core that he's built, and I think that's exactly Shep's role. But I do think that when you look at where he's going to line up, whether it's the X, the Z, the slot, he's not the only player that can line up like all over the place. Paris Campbell as well. I know we just talked about him, Alex, but let's talk about him again because I think this is a player that, looking at that contract, great value, kind of a bargain for the player that you're getting if he stays healthy. Now, health is the factor. Same thing like it was for Sterling Shepard. Paris Campbell, really good player. He can be your gadget guy if you need him to be. Wan'Dale Robinson also fits that role, but all that speed that Paris Campbell brings to the lineup is something that the Giants were desperately missing. So, Alex, what role do you see Paris Campbell playing in the offense? Because I kind of see him playing this Z receiver role, being a gadget guy, catching a lot of screen passes, but also having the speed to go vertical. So, I don't know, I'm curious to see, what's your projection for him this season?
Paris Campbell's a good player for what we need, right? The Giants were one of the slowest. I think they actually were the slowest team in the NFL last year at the wide receiver position. Let me say that again. They were the slowest team. So when you don't have speed, it hurts your ability to separate, hurts your ability for explosive plays downfield. Paris Campbell's a 4-3 guy. You talk about speed, Paris Campbell's got it. He said, he's had injury history, definitely dealt with some issues in the past, but 17 games last year, he finally feels healthy, he feels good, and he feels ready to contribute. And he also said a lot of really great things about this Giants team. He really was like, from what I heard, the players over there are just having fun, and it's a really great place to play, and I really want him to be there. So he wants to be a Giant, which is really good because look at his contract, look how incentive-laden it is. He's got to have a career year to hit most of his incentives, which is a really good thing for the Giants because, average-wise, he won't hit them, and we won't end up paying him the max contract. But if he does hit them, it means he's having a great year, and he's contributing heavily to this offense, which is a great situation to be in. So, yes, you said you use him in the slot, use him in the Z. Absolutely. He can move around the field. He can, put him in motion. Obviously, he's really great up the seams. He's really great on many routes because of his speed. And then you have Darius Slayton over there, right? You have Darius Slayton back too. So if you have that X on the outside and Darius Slayton with speed, he's got 4.3, 4.4 speed. And then you have Paris Campbell in the slot with 4.3 speed. How are you gonna catch up with these guys, For example, if you're running a dagger route with Slayton, he's cutting across the middle, and you have Paris Campbell running a freaking right up the gut, that safety has to make a decision. Am I going to follow Darius Slayton on that dagger, or am I going to follow Paris Campbell running up the seam straight away towards the end zone? Those are the type of things that the Giants are going to probably expand upon and try to take advantage of with that level of speed, because if the safety bites down, you have Paris Campbell wide open downfield with the blazing speed, and Daniel Jones has got the arm to get it there. So that's ultimately what I see happening. A lot of speed, guys that can separate. This is a good situation to be in. Paris Campbell's going to fit into this offense quite nicely, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I want to touch on Darius Slayton since you just mentioned him. He's got that deep speed. He's got the ability to go down there, make big plays. That's kind of like the majority of what Slayton does is makes big plays. He's not really your guy who goes over the middle of the field. That's where you look upon Campbell. He's your guy who's going to kind of run those drag routes, catch some screen passes, and that's also what you're looking for out of Isaiah Hodgins, who I think is going to play the X for the Giants this season. It's going to be Slayton and Hodgins rotating in that X receiver spot, and I really like that because they're very similar but different players. They both have the frame, they both have the size to play on the outside, play on the line of scrimmage. However, I think that Slayton a lot less physical than Hodgins. Hodgins is pretty physical, likes to work across the middle of the field. So let's say the Giants need a big play across the middle of the field. They're facing a lot of Tampa 2 in this game, or a lot of cover 2, whatever you want to call it. If they're facing a lot of coverages where the middle of the field is exposed, you're going Hodgins because he runs a great post route. He runs a great deep crosser. Hodgins all day long. But let's say they're facing a team that's, running cover 3 and you've got an opportunity to take some shots down the sideline. Well, that's where I want Darius Slayton because he can go down the sideline, make those big time plays. So I really like the rotation that the Giants have there with Slayton. And again, I like the Slayton contract. They got him for a much lower price than I was expecting. You said it yesterday. He looked like he could maybe grab $10 million per year. They got him at $6. Great deal. And now there's incentives into that contract. We'll see if he reaches those. There's a good chance he does because every year that we count Darius Slayton out, he proves us wrong and comes back stronger than ever. So, and you got to respect that out of Darius Slayton. I mean, he was buried on the depth chart last season, rises his way back into the starting lineup, leads the Giants in receiving yards in 2022. Who saw that coming? I don't know. So Darius Slayton, again, I'm so happy that he's back. I think he's a really good guy off the field as well. Good locker room guy. He's really well respected and liked in the locker room. So I think he's going to have a huge impact. But another player who is well respected, well liked, I know Giants fans love him, is Isaiah Hodgins. And I think he plays the X. He's got the big frame. He's the biggest receiver on this roster right now. And I like his ability to work that middle of the field. So Alex, what are your thoughts on Isaiah Hodgins going into his second year with the New York Giants? He played half of the season with the Giants, instantly clicked. Do you think that maybe there's a chance here where he was still getting it going with the Giants since he only played a half a season, and now that full off season going into the regular season, do you think we could have an even bigger breakout out of Isaiah Hodgins in 2023 just based on familiarity and experience within the scheme?
I mean, look, he was getting a massive share of the targets because we didn't really have that many other options. So we could see him get less targets, but I think he makes the most with them. He has really good hands, 77.1% catch rate last year, over 48 targets, 37 receptions, almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. He played in 10 games, guys. Over the last 5 or 6 games of the season, I think he had all 4 of his touchdowns. So this is a player who is going to be an impact guy for the Giants. They're very high on him. He obviously wants to be here. Brian Daboll respects him and trusts him, so he's going to be a big part. As long as he can maintain his growth and continue getting better, he's only 24 years old. This is a player that's 6'4", 210 pounds. He's physical. He's got some speed. He can separate a little bit. He got great hands. We really like Isaiah Hodgins. I think his ceiling is a wide receiver too, like a mid wide receiver too, which is a great value based on the fact that we got him off a practice squad and the midway point last year. So, a mid wide receiver too from that kind of perspective, yes, I'll take that every single day of the week. That's tremendous. And I think that ultimately he can be a big boundary X guy for us. The question here is, if you go out and get a wide receiver 1 in the draft or a supposed wide receiver 1 like a Quentin Johnson or Jordan Addison, and now you have Isaiah Hodgins and you have a Darius Slayton and you got Campbell and you have this wide receiver 1 in the draft, how do you get all of them reps? Because Darius Slayton should be starting, right? He should be on the field for most plays. Isaiah Hodgins, you can make the argument he should be on the field for most plays. And then adding another wide receiver to the mix, one of those guys obviously falls out of favor, and I'm not going to stop the Giants from getting a top receiver talent in the draft just because Hodgins and Slayton are in the way. That's obviously not the case. Maybe they are put in all together. Maybe they have Hodgins slide into the slot, or theoretically, you go out and get like a guy like Zay Flowers or a guy like Jordan Addison who can play inside and outside, and then you move them around. You can have Hodgins, you can have Darius Slayton on the outsides, and then you can have your wide receiver 1 or your top draft pick in the slot, and you can move them around, and then Campbell can come in and do some stuff with his speed. Look, having more options is always a good problem to have, right? Because we saw what life is like with no options. So I'd rather have a lot of depth. I'd rather have the problematic situation of having to choose between too much talent and who's going to be playing and who's going to be getting reps than instead going out and saying, okay, we're not going to draft this guy because we already have so many players. Like, that's not the case. And for what it's worth, Paris Campbell's only on a 1-year deal. So if they decide, oh, you know what, we don't really need Paris Campbell to be on the field all the time, he's gone next year anyway. So it doesn't really matter. You're not going to be like kicking yourself because he's making a ton of money like Kenny Galladay and you're like, he's getting paid $16 million to ride the bench. That's not the case with Paris Campbell. Like, he might end up not playing that much because we have better guys in front of him, which is obviously a great problem to have. So when it comes to, Hodgins, big fan of his. I think he's going to get a lot of action, but there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed this upcoming year, a lot more than last year. So I think his like target share will drop, but I think he still has a nice stat line because he's a big red zone threat for us. I don't think that his impact will be, pushed to the side because he's going to be a major red zone guy, and he has a lot of chemistry with Daniel Jones in that category. So I think that that's where we'll probably see him make the biggest impact.
Yeah, Isaiah Hodgins is great in the red zone. Another player that the Giants have who's also pretty damn good in the red zone, scored a red zone touchdown in the regular season before having a season-ending injury, is Wan'Dale Robinson. I like his shiftiness, his craftiness. You think to the Super Bowl that just happened where the Chiefs beat the Eagles, and you watch those 2 touchdowns that they had in the red zone. It was really just motion a shifty slot guy from the outside in, have him run a nice whip route and get wide open on the sideline. That's Wan'Dale Robinson. That's what he brings to your offense. And so I think he's going to get a lot of red zone touchdowns this year. If the Giants are scoring a lot of points and they're getting into the red zone, they're converting, Wan'Dale Robinson's going to have a big part to play in all that because he runs such good routes in the short to intermediate area. So he can run those little whip routes on the goal line, those little slant returns and all of that stuff just to get himself open, create some space, and score touchdowns. And that's really a big takeaway from all of this is that the Giants have guys who can separate now, and especially if they do add Isaiah McKenzie to the mix, and if they do go into the draft and take someone in the first round who's likely a separator like Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison, like, this receiving core is just so much better. And you're kind of mentioning it here. The Giants, do they have too many mouths to feed? Well, arguably, maybe yes, they do. But not really. That's a good problem to have at the end of the day. I'd much rather have too many mouths to feed than not enough talent on the field. That's number one. Bar none, that is the main takeaway from this offseason for me. The Giants, we're talking about how does this offense look? How do all of these guys fit in? Do they have too many receivers who do the same things? No, you can never have too many receivers that do the same things because injuries are part of the game, A, and B, you always keep your defense guessing when you have a lot of depth and a lot of talent on the field. So that's my main takeaway from this whole offense. But with Wan'Dale Robinson, Alex, what do you think his role is going to be this season? I know he's really good on those gadget plays. I think he's going to have an impact in the red zone. But do you think he plays primarily in the slot? Do you think they can work him outside? Because I think he's going to play a lot in the slot receiver position, but I don't see him being this vertical threat either. I think he's just going to work a lot of those short to intermediate routes, a lot of drag routes, a lot of, slant routes, a lot of whip routes, all of that stuff in the short to intermediate area. Give him the ball in space so he can run upfield, make some men miss, and gain some extra yardage. So what are your expectations for Wan'Dale Robinson this season?
Look, this is why we brought back Shep. This is why we signed Paris Campbell, right? We needed insurance for Wan'Dale, who probably is not going to be playing on opening day, on week 1 of the regular season. This is going to be a situation where we're easing Wan'Dale back into the mix, right? He's a long-term solution. There's no reason to rush him back to gameplay, and ultimately, he's a great player when he's healthy. He was really starting to get on in this offense before he got hurt, and God help us with that, MetLife turf. Hopefully they change it, and they are going to be changing, and we'll see how that kind of affects the injuries here moving forward. But Wan'Dale Robinson's a very, very fun player to watch. He's fast, he's shifty, he catches the ball well. When he gets the ball in the open field, he can make moves. He's physical as hell for a guy of his size. He had 19 bench press reps, and he's like 5'9". So you're looking at a player like him, and you're saying this could be a very nice piece to our offense for a very long time. Like you said, the zig routes, the whips, the slants, the drag routes, the crossers. He's got some speed downfield. He can actually catch those high pointed footballs. He's got some physicality to his game. I think he's a very nice player, but having insurance with the guys we did sign is certainly a good thing to have. But, I see him as a very nice piece for us for a while. I think he'll come back fully healthy. As we've seen these days, ACL tears, a lot of players get them. It takes about a year to return. Barring any setbacks, barring any further injuries to the knee, players come back fully healthy and they're totally fine, and like they never happened in the first place. So really just got to give him the time, got to allow him to fully recover, and then when he's back and he's feeling good again, I think he's going to be an impact player for us, and he's going to be again, he is their draft pick, right? He is the draft pick of Brian Dable and Joe Shane, so he is going to be involved. He is a long-term solution for us, so I do see them continuing to expand on his value in the way that they utilize him moving forward.
Yeah, speaking about players returning from ACL injuries, let's talk about Saquon Barkley, comeback player of the year finalist. What are your expectations for him going into 2023? Because I think he could have a monster season this year. He's likely going to be playing on the franchise tag. I don't know how likely it is that they actually come to terms on a contract extension. We'll see. He rejected the $12.5 million offer, but now that we're looking at this running back market, there's not a lot of money being handed out to that position. So I'm not so sure that Saquon Barkley's going to get the contract that he's seeking with the Giants or in free agency. And I think that's going to be a big storyline heading into the season, because ultimately there is a good chance that he does play on the franchise tag, and I think that's just going to lead to the best version of Saquon Barkley yet. If he does end up playing on the franchise tag, like, he's going to go out there, he's going to eat, he's going to be motivated to do the best. And I mean, he already had a phenomenal bounce back season in 2022, his first year with Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka. I can't wait to see how they get him more incorporated, especially in the receiving game in 2023, because you're looking at the matchup nightmares that they're creating on this offense, right? Darren Waller, who we're about to get into before we wrap up, but you're looking at Darren Waller being that do-it-all matchup nightmare for a safety and a linebacker, but so is Saquon Barkley. So again, when you're talking about too many mouths to feed, it's not in a bad way, because if there's a play or if there's a game where, Waller's going off and he needs to get doubled, well, now Saquon Barkley's about to slip into the flat and be wide open and gain like 30 yards after the catch. How many times have we seen him do that? So Saquon Barkley, I honestly think that a huge season is in store for him. Like, again, we'll see what happens with the franchise tag. There's always a chance to try and tag and trade him, rescind the tag, let him test free agency. I don't think any of that's going to happen. I think that he is going to be back with the Giants next season. I think he will play on the franchise tag, and I do think that a huge season, second year in Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka's offense, a huge year is in store for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, look, Saquon Barkley is the linchpin of this offense when he's healthy and he's at the top of his game and they're utilizing him. We love Saquon in this offense. Obviously, it's hard not to. But I'll tell you what, the running back market's dry. Like, the top running back on the market was Miles Sanders, and he got, like $6 million a year? Crazy little contract that just happened, by the way. Jordan Poyer, all-pro level safety, 2 years, $10 million. Julian Love got paid more than him. That's crazy. He took a big discount seemingly to stay with Buffalo. So I don't know, that's a really, really crazy deal. I don't know why the hell he would sign that. He could probably get a lot more than that, but I guess respect to him for taking a hometown discount. But Saquon Barkley, obviously fan favorite for a lot of people, really productive, love to have him, adding a lot of weapons around him, takes a lot of attention away from him, so theoretically speaking, he should be a lot better. He should be able to have a lot more support, which means we don't have to give him 30 carries, 30 touches a game. He can get 20 touches a game and maintain his health, right? The whole fear of running backs is that they get hurt a lot. That's why you don't pay these guys. But at the end of the day, when it comes to Saquon, we've had to rely on him so much and give him so many carries over the years. Now we can kind of look at him and say, all right, we got you support. Darren Waller, of course, we get Shep back. We got Paris Campbell. Maybe we add a wide receiver one. You bring Slayton back and you get Wandale back. And, now we don't have to rely on you 100% of the time. And of course, Isaiah Hodgins, I didn't even mention. So, this is a really good situation for the Giants. They're doing a good job of building support not only around Daniel Jones, but around Saquon as well. So I'm pretty happy. But the last guy being Darren Waller, I'll let you give your take on him because, with the salary kind of situation unfolding here, they're clearing some cap space clearly. They traded a third-round pick not to get rid of him in a year. They traded a third-round pick because he's one of the fastest tight ends in football. He's a playmaker. He's going to exploit weaknesses on defenses, and he's going to draw a lot of attention away from defensive backfields and whatnot, which opens up opportunities for everybody else. So definitely want to get your take on Waller and what he can bring to this offense.
Yeah, look, we've been talking about him for the past few days. We're super excited about the acquisition of Darren Waller. We've really broken down every aspect of Darren Waller, but I will say this is your prototypical matchup nightmare. And what I really want to hit on here is that the Giants went into this offseason, they needed playmakers. They wanted to go out there and find the number one receiver. But look at the market right now. There's nothing out there. There's no solid number one dominant receiver that they can go waste their money on in free agency. Like, that wasn't an option for them. So they got really creative, and they found a do-it-all, dynamic, matchup nightmare tight end in Darren Waller, who also can play the wide receiver role. I think that was a really smart acquisition by the Giants. Just looking at the market and what was available to them. I mean, do you want to go for one of these guys with a super inflated contract like a DeAndre Hopkins, trade the same draft capital to get a guy like Hopkins, but have to figure out a much more difficult contract? No, you go with the guy Darren Waller, who can do everything that you need him to in your offense while being on a very flexible and affordable contract. They created a lot of cap space after signing him or after trading for him by restructuring his contract, and this deal is one that they can get out of at any point, and I love that about it. So this is like the premier acquisition for the New York Giants this offseason. It will remain that way, in my opinion, no matter what they do during the draft, because Darren Waller really does have the potential to be one of the best players in the NFL, especially in this offense. We're talking about all these players that they have, all these matchups that they have. This is a win for Darren Waller. Being in an offense with so many mouths to feed, he is really going to benefit from the idea of having, because linebackers' primary jobs, it's either to guard the running back or guard the tight end. Darren Waller has played alongside Josh Jacobs, and that's what's made him so great, because the linebacker has to pick, am I guarding Waller on this play or am I guarding Jacobs on this play? Well, now he's got an even better player in Saquon Barkley behind him, and they also have to pick between Waller and Barkley. So that makes me really excited, and I think that when you talk about red zone efficiency, having a big 6'6" tight end with great route running and great separation, that's going to help you there. And everything across the middle of the field, going vertical, he makes big plays downfield. Darren Waller is going to change this offense overnight, and I am so excited for it.
Yes, he definitely is going to bring, and that's the thing, the Giants got the wide receiver 1 impact that they were looking for a third-round pick, right? And this is another little theory that I actually came up with. A lot of people talking about DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, I would love DeAndre Hopkins, but so here's something, Anthony, that I would say, right? There's two options. You can trade, let's say it's a third and a fourth round pick. Like you trade a third and a fourth round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, or you take your 25th overall pick and you use that third and fourth round pick to move up as far as you can to get a guy like Quentin Johnson. You know what I mean? So either way, you're trading a third and a fourth round pick. You get a wide receiver 1 in DeAndre Hopkins, which comes with a massive salary hit. He's obviously older. Or you go up and move up for a guy like Addison or Quentin Johnson or whoever it might be, JSN. I think that's probably the better method. Those are the two perspectives. Trading up for a top receiver if the Giants want to go that route. Quentin Johnson looks like a perfect fit for this offense right now because we don't really have that physical presence, but pairing that physical presence with elite speed and an elite frame and a productive guy like Johnston, I mean, it's really hard to turn that option down. So just something that popped into my head. What do you think about that entire kind of concept?
I mean, listen, I've floated the idea out to you before on this podcast about the Giants trading up for Quentin Johnson. I think he's the number 1 receiver on the board. He makes sense for the team. I would like to see them go out there and do it for the right price. I'm not trying to trade the whole farm just for a receiver. And I'm also at the point where I'm looking at this offense right now, and I think they have a lot of mouths to feed, and they have a lot of talent, and they don't need to force a receiver in the first round, and they definitely don't need to trade up for a receiver. They could, and I wouldn't be against it. I'd be excited by it. I think it would be a good idea. But honestly, I'm kind of in the boat where they might need to just allocate that 25th overall pick into their secondary. They just lost Julian Love. They don't have a CB2. It might have to go cornerback. They might even have to consider going safety with that 25th overall pick. I don't know if trading up and sacrificing more mid-round assets that could be used in the secondary is actually a worthwhile thing to do. And again, I was the one who really floated this idea, so I was a big proponent of this, but seeing what the Giants have done so far this offseason and acquiring all this playmaking talent, I don't know if the Giants need to trade up and get a receiver. Will they? Maybe. If they do, I'm probably going to like the move, depending on how much they give up. But again, I just think, the Giants have put themselves in a position where they can go best player available at 25, and that's a really nice place to be. Not having to be aggressive and move up to get your guy, I think that's a really, really exciting thing for the Giants to just be able to sit there and get whoever is the best player on the board. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, just going BPA at the 25th overall pick?
Totally fine with that too. We could use a cornerback, like I mentioned earlier before, Dory Jackson. He might be gone next year, so we need to have a plan and strategy in place, and can't only be free agency all the time. You have to be able to draft well, and cornerback is one of those positions. If you draft well at cornerback, it covers your butt for a long, long time. So I definitely could see the Giants going in that direction, maybe going and drafting like a Tank Dell in the second round. You kind of mentioned that yesterday. So I think that really covers all the entire offensive pieces. We haven't really discussed Daniel Jones, insignificant, but I think we all kind of know what he offers. We've gone through this many times. So I think this is where we're at right now with the offensive pieces, but I would not be surprised if we added a couple small ones like McKenzie style guys, and then maybe went and got a receiver in the draft. So I think that kind of rounds out the offensive playmakers for the time being.
Yeah, and listen, there's going to be players in the middle rounds of the draft that they're going to take a look at. Ty J. Spears out of Tulane. I wrote an article on him this morning. He's a really solid running back that they scouted. They had dinner with before his pro day. They're going to keep looking to add talent to the offense because Daniel Jones is the key to this. But giving Daniel Jones support, giving him playmakers, is going to benefit everybody. So that's the way that this offense succeeds, is by giving Daniel Jones as many weapons as humanly possible. And of course, breaking down all of these weapons is so much fun, and we love to do it right here on Fireside Giants. So if you're new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And please leave a like if you did enjoy this episode, and comment your thoughts on the Giants' new playmakers down below. We'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.